All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we finally have some more encouraging news about the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver room. So real quick, we know they have George Pickens, right? But they lost or they traded away Deontay Johnson, their prior to George Pickens' ascension, wide receiver number one, right? So they flip him, they get a cornerback, a starting caliber cornerback. It was a solid trade because Deontay Johnson was relatively disgruntled, and he also had a brutal season. No disrespect there, but you get what I'm saying. So George Pickens is, obviously a star wide receiver, but outside of that, you got Van Jefferson as wide receiver 2, and you got Quez Watkins as your slot wide receiver / wide receiver 3. And I know they still have Calvin Austin, but after losing Deontay Johnson and losing Allen Robinson, who was kind of an unfortunate, didn't really go as planned last season, you get what I'm saying here. They need to make a move. And now Pittsburgh does have a couple of nice draft picks. They got a round 1 pick 20, the second round pick 51, and then they have 2 third-round draft picks. And this is reportedly or allegedly a huge, loaded, super deep wide receiver draft room. And we've been talking, we'll talk about this in just a second, but before we get into tonight's video, if you guys enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. Steelers fans, love you guys as always. You bless every video I post on this channel, so thank you. If we could try and get this video to 500 likes, that would mean the world to me because it is extremely dead in the offseason right now. So here's the thing. We heard somebody on 93.7 The Fan in the Huddle podcast say this, Lacanfora. I know that they're really trying to make something happen. Would not surprise me if they did that tomorrow, if they did it the Wednesday before the draft, if they did it while they were on the clock, if they did it on the run up to the draft that Thursday. So thank goodness, we've talked about a whole bunch of different guys. We'll talk about that in just a second. I've got Tyler Lockett on the screen here because there's a connection there with Russell Wilson. Read a great article on SteelersNow.com. But there's still a couple of guys available on the free agent market. We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now. You still have Tyler Boyd. That's not going to happen to Pittsburgh. You got Michael Thomas, Russell Gage. I didn't know Russell Gage was a free agent when I saw that. It actually, I don't hate it, but none of these guys really get me going. And I know they have a couple of nice draft picks, right? We're kind of eyeing those because Pittsburgh's got to figure out the center position. They could also use some more help on the right side of the offensive line. So I anticipate, and a lot of Steelers fans are anticipating, in the first round, you're going to go offensive line, you're going to go center, or vice versa in the second round. And the third round, where they have the 84th pick and the 98th pick, that's where they're going to be taking a wide receiver. I got to keep it a buck. I get it. There's guys like Antonio Brown drafted in the 6th round, whatever. I get it. Offensive line is first and foremost. If you can't win in the trenches, you're not going to win playoff games. You're not even going to win games, but you're certainly not going to win Super Bowls if you can't win on the trenches. Defensively, Pittsburgh is absolutely set. As far as a starting caliber defense goes, they're one of the best in the business. So defensive trenches, you're set. I get it. First and foremost, offensive trenches, they're going to figure that out. They're going to settle that off in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft, most likely. But guys like Tyler Boyd, once again, not going to happen. But Michael Thomas, Russell Gage, Hunter Renfrow, DJ Chark, McCole Hardman, Michael Gallup, while those would be intriguing signings, if I woke up tomorrow, if we checked Twitter, after this video and we saw that the Pittsburgh Steelers signed one of these players, I do think it would be a significant step up from Van Jefferson. Cordell is going to be more of a, special teams guy with the new rules. But Quez Watkins, I mean, come on, who are we kidding here? It's just not going to work. So if they didn't address this in the draft and they picked up one of those guys, on the list I just mentioned, I would feel a little bit better, but not really. Not really. I need a little bit of both. So once again, it was reported, and I got all this news. SteelersNow.com is a great website. It was reported on Wednesday by Jason Lacanfora that the Steelers are still searching for a trade at wide receiver. Interesting, he said the word trade because, once again, we know 3/5 of the team's wide receiver room is no longer on the team with Deontay Johnson and Allen Robinson moving away. They were interested in Mike Williams before he signed with the New York Jets. They talked to Tyler Boyd before that got kicked off, and then they talked about a potential trade with San Francisco before they said they're not trading Brandon Ayuk and the the value, what you were going to have to give up just wasn't even really there to begin with. So once again, I'm looking at this Steelers depth chart, and it's not doing anything for me at the wide receiver room outside of George Pickens. I'm still super hopeful for guys like Calvin Austin, but guys, Quez Watkins and Van Jefferson, if you're just like kind of hoping that these are gonna, platoon into these great role players, I think that's a little bit risky. So one thing to keep in mind here, especially when we're talking about Tyler Lockett, keep in mind Tyler Lockett been with Seattle since 2015, so he spent 7 seasons with new Steelers quarterback Russell Wilson. Dead money on a post-June 1st deal spread out over 2 seasons. However, transactions that happened before June 1st, that bill's due in the entire coming season. So that's where Tyler Lockett trade comes into play here. Now, Lockett just restructured his deal with the Seahawks this offseason, so Seattle's not going to trade him before June 1st, because if they trade him, that would incur a $27.8 million dead cap hit and cost the Seahawks an additional $8.9 million in cap space on top of what it is slated to cost. Now, if you wait till after June 1st, that number drops down to about $14 million dead cap hit, while Seattle would save about $5 million. And to the Steelers, Lockett would be a huge bargain with just $4.67 million in guaranteed salary and $340K in roster bonuses. Now, keep in mind, Tyler Lockett did not have a great season last year. We also have to keep in mind the trade for Stephon Diggs. I know that Houston ended up restructuring his contract, but they, star wide receiver, Stephon Diggs, they gave up a 2nd-round draft pick. They gave up practically nothing. They had 2 2nd-round picks to begin with. So, I don't even think it would take much to get Tyler Lockett, but especially because they drafted JSN in the 1st round last year. He had a great rookie season, and we saw Tyler Lockett's least productive season since 2017. However, those stats sound bad at face value. Would you take a player who had 79 catches for 894 yards and 5 touchdowns? I certainly would, to pair up with George Pickens. What I would do from there is I would draft a wide receiver at some point in the 3rd round with either of their picks that they have. And folks, just like that, you have a fully competent wide receiver room with a star wide receiver in George Pickens. You got Mr. Productive, reliable, great player, just a smart, high IQ football player in Tyler Lockett as your consistent, reliable number 2 guy. Then you bring in a rookie wide receiver with high upside. And then you still have Calvin Austin. You still got Quez Watkins, and you still have Van Jefferson. We also have to keep in mind Pat Freiermuth had such an underwhelming season in Matt Canada's scheme. And we also have to keep in mind that Jaylen Warren is a freaking beast. Pretty much ascended last season, but I think he's going to truly ascend this upcoming season. So I get it. First 2 rounds, offensive line. I'm all for it. 3rd round, draft a wide receiver. But do not count out a Steelers wide receiver trade, especially Tyler Lockett. Seattle's moving in a different direction. Wouldn't even be surprised if they trade up and select a guy like Michael Penix. So I love this idea. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Just in theory, it would be, maybe an extra 3rd round pick for next season in return for Tyler Lockett. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Let me know what you're thinking about the wide receiver room in general. Hit that like button, hit that sub button, and we will see you soon.